Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought today I'd try to do something that I've never done before. It's quite a bit of forging for me. I'm going to take a piece of 18 gauge copper sheet and make it into a bangle, and we're going to texture it and dome it with some relatively primitive forging tools. So I don't have forging stakes or anything, so we're going to have to make do with dapping blocks and punches and swaging blocks, and we'll see if we can do it. All right, so let's get started. So this is one of my design ideas sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. This particular one has information about the flow temperatures of various types of silver solder. The real feature in these things for me is that they have this nice dot matrix in the back on each page, and it helps me to draw better pictures. I keep things a little more symmetrical if I do it that way. But the real thing that I like about them is that it gives me a permanent record of things that I've made. So I can go back and see how I did something. I write down these gauges and things like that that I use for a particular project. And so I have a record of that, and that's kind of nice. So here's today's project. I would also note that it is the last page in this book, so I have to pick out a new one. And I have three on hand. I have this one, which just has the melting points of copper and silver. Kind of picture my dog. And space for some notes. This one is saw blade stuff, like which saw blades you should use for how thick a material. This one has ring size chart and information. So tell me which one you think I should start as the next one for my projects, because I need to pick a new one. So, all right. So here's what I have in mind today. I'm going to make a copper cuff out of a piece of flat 18 gauge copper sheet, which is 1 millimeter thick. And I think the order of operations for me here is going to be to cut out the piece of copper. I kind of scribed it out already on this great big piece of copper here. I didn't have a very straight edge, so I had to I used some tin snips to cut it, and then I filed it as straight as I could. And then I used a divider to scratch it like that, and I made it about 2.5 centimeters wide, thinking that it's going to curve downwards and inwards a little bit when we're done with it. So my first step is probably going to be used a saw to cut this off so I get a little bit neater edge on it. And you can do it either way, I suppose, but my snips aren't that great for thick stuff, so I'll probably saw this one out. It might take a little while. I think after that, I already calculated the length of the piece of copper that I need, because it's about 75 millimeters wide. And to get the circumference of something, you go to the outside edge, and that's 75 millimeters. So you multiply times pi, which is 3.14. And I came out to 235.5 millimeters, or 23.5 centimeters roughly. So that's how long I'll measure that piece to be. Now, I have a suspicion that when we're hammering it, because I'm going to hammer it flat first, I think, and then we'll anneal it, and then we'll solder it into a circle, and then we'll start trying to shape it, is my plan of action anyway. I may change that along the way. But I suspect when we're hammering it, it's going to get a little bit longer. Because we're going to be impacting the metal and stretching it, and it's going to push it outwards. And so we may add an additional centimeter or so, I'm guessing, but we'll see. I'll measure it at the beginning, and I'll measure it after we're done hammering it. So we get some therapeutic hammering tonight, so we should be able to skip our therapist visit this week. All right, so let's start by cutting this piece of sheet out. I'm going to use a 00. I think I usually use a 00 for most things, but let's go over to the sawing place. I don't know that I've ever tried to cut something this long with the jewellery saw before, so we'll see how it works. Probably have to go halfway from one side, halfway from another, and then bend it, and then go the rest of the way. So let's start that way. think I'm going to have to use shears for the rest of the way. Alright, I'm going to try and kind of flatten this out a little bit. This is the thing I used from my wife's collection of bangles to measure how big I wanted it to be. This one fits her pretty well, so I kind of tried to file all the burrs off of the other side already. I'm just trying to get it relatively flat here. If you had a big anvil, which I don't, you could use your plastic hammer or your, I suppose, your rawhide mallet to kind of flatten this back out. I guess we could try. See if that works. Doesn't have to be perfect. That did work a little better than just trying to shoot it. So let's take this file and work on filing this a little bit. See, I'm quite a bit off right here, so it's going to take a little bit of filing. I'm going to do this over the floor rather than the table because I have a bunch of silver scrap up here and I want to mix up this copper in it. So I'm going to do most of this off camera, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of hammering here now. And I think I'm going to use my chasing hammer's little peen on the end. And we'll just work our way down. This end isn't very flat, but I'm probably going to have to cut it off a little bit more anyway. I measured to 23.5 centimeters, so let's just beat it up with this thing. So one of the things that happens when you're pounding on metal that aggressively is it gets work hardened. So this is pretty stiff and much more brittle than it would have been before. So we're going to anneal this. Annealing is where you heat it up to the point where it's kind of a dull reddish color. And then just kind of let it cool off. Let that cool for a few minutes. So I let that cool for a while and then I quenched it the rest of the way. I wanted to see if we stretched much. Just a tiny bit. Not as much as I anticipated. So I must not have eaten my Wheaties today. But we really want it to be about right. Well, let's try about right there and we'll cut it off. File it. Call it good. So the reason I tipped it over and was heating from the outside is because sometimes solder, when it doesn't like to penetrate the entire crack when it's doing something like that. And in order to get it to do that, I wanted to heat the whole thing up to the flow point again, and then point it right at the outside so it draw it through, which it seems like it did. So let's cool off for a minute. Okay, so I kind of rounded this out. I dremeled off most of the excess solder that bled out to the outside and as much as I could on the inside. And I think I'm going to try and start bending this downwards this way a little bit. And I'm going to use this dapping punch. So starting to get kind of an inward curve going on there, which is kind of what I wanted. Perhaps it's time to start switching over to the other side. I think I'm going to spend a little time using my plastic nylon jawed pliers here and see if I can make this symmetrical. At least as close as I can get it. It's starting to look pretty round. I think it's probably symmetrical enough. I feel like maybe I was originally going to file this flat if it worked out, but I kind of feel like I should hammer it a little bit to match the rest of this. So, what do you guys think? Let me know if you think I made the right choice. I think I'm gonna. Okay, so I'm almost inclined to leave this patina on it. if it was even all the way around. I suppose I could kind of use the flame on it again, but first I think I'm going to clean up the inside a little bit with one of those bristle discs, one of the coarse bristle discs, to get rid of most of the oxides on the inside. And then I'll make a decision about the patina. But interestingly, now that I've hammered that, that is really hard. So I kind of expected that, but I didn't realize just how stiff it was going to be. So that's kind of nice. Ends up being real heavy, durable feeling. So, all right, well, I'm going to get that cleaned up, and we'll look at it when it's done. So I did a little bit of cleanup on it. I pickled it for a while, and then I did kind of a really coarse bristle wheel on the inside, just to kind of smooth out the big tool marks and stuff. And then on the outside, I used one of the finest bristle wheel that I have, and I just kind of ran it over the whole surface. And I was just kind of doing that as a pre-polish before I put it on the big polishing wheel, but I kind of like this sort of satiny looking finish. It's subdued and it catches the light still, but it's mellow kind of comparatively. Most things I do kind of a high polish too, and this I kind of like this way. So of course copper will oxidize over time, and if you want it to stay looking like this, you have to put a coating of some sort on it. A lot of people use clear fingernail polish, but that has to be replaced periodically because it wears off. Or you could just keep a polishing cloth handy and polish it periodically to keep the tarnish away. So honestly, the hardest part about this piece was getting it sort of regular after, it's not perfectly round, but it's definitely in the ballpark. So I'm pleased with the way it domed. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. So tell me what you thought. Tell me if you think I should actually polish it to a high polish. I think it'll take a little bit of the hammering off, but we could always go back and rehammer it. I think that's a pretty achievable thing, just with a set of dapping punches and plastic hammer and a chasing hammer. So that wasn't as hard as I expected. The other thing I would note is that I thought I was going to have to use some sort of swage block, which is this is a homemade swage block that I just used some Forstner bits to cut through some really hard wood. And this, you could have taken this further by using this. I kind of like it at this subtle angle like this, but you could probably put it in there and use dapping punches to really get that kind of curved outwards, domed look a little bit more severe, or a little bit more bulgy, for lack of a better word. But yeah, leave a comment, tell me what you think, tell me your opinion about the polish and stuff like that, and how you would have done it if you were to approach it, because this is, like I said, I don't do a lot of just forging, and I was kind of in the mood to try something different. So and you could probably do that just same with silver. It's just silver's so expensive right now, so it was a good test piece. All right, well, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well, that was the copper hammered bangle bracelet. I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully it helped you in some way. If it did, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button before you go. You might want to check out my main YouTube channel page. I have over 660 videos now. I do 3 per week, and so there's a constant stream of pretty good content coming out, I think. Lots of projects to try, a few different skills, some beginner projects if you're a beginner. I think it's got a lot of valuable stuff over there, so maybe consider subscribing to my channel as well. It doesn't cost anything, and it makes it much easier to find my content. And you might find yourself coming back to use it again. I wanted to thank some groups of people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. They not only have helped me out financially, they have created a lovely community over there. I'd like to welcome a new one, Lori, thank you for signing up. I hope that you find it, as I have, to be a great place over there with a lot of cool people. So thanks, patrons, for making it that way, and thank you, Lori, for signing up. The other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 29,400. We're pushing towards 30,000, which is amazing. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the lovely comments. I really do appreciate you giving me some input and stuff, because it makes my channel a better place. And I love to hear your stories too. So tell me how you got into this, or what's your favorite tool, or what's the trick that you think is the coolest trick you ever learned. So I love to hear that kind of stuff. So thanks for making my comment section a learning place for everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you also for the financial help. The Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, the merch purchases, buying my ebooks. All of that stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help. So thank you for that. The video description has some important links. If you want to check out Patreon, there's a link to that. You can find out a little bit more about that community. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks. Or some other merch. There's quite a few kind of cool things over there. Some mugs and t-shirts and some magnets and things. So check those out. Get yourself a present. And finally, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials. You'll find in that ebook over 170 different pages, each one devoted to a particular tutorial I did during that year. There's a link to the tutorial. There's extra information about that project. A picture of the sketch, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials, a difficulty rating, stone information, notes I took about the project, things I might have learned from it, all sorts of useful information. And it's a really nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. And it's a great way to support my channel. So thank you in advance if you do that. You can even go to the merch store, and there's a link to get all 3 of the books that I've done, 2023, 2024, and 2025, for a single package deal where you get $15 off. So save yourself a little money and get all 3 and have projects for a long time. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.